Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry, and I welcome you to the program today. I am excited because I have on the line with me Al Stopa, who I've spoken to before. Al's just a great all-around guy, a very nice guy. He's been speaking professionally for 30 years. The content he speaks on is about principles of personal power, and I'm excited for you to hear this. This is really interesting information. Al speaks in the U.S. He is based out of Utah. He has written an astounding 8 books, and the one that we're going to talk about more so today is called Make Your Mark on the World in 8 Days. So, Al, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Andy. Nice to talk with you again.
Great to speak with you again, Al. Al, let's talk about, first of all, you're a professional speaker, and you're going around to audiences, and you are improving their lives. So what are the things you are saying to them? Who is it that's wanting help, and how are you helping them?
Well, that's a big assumption to say I'm improving lives, Andy. I appreciate that assumption. I'll qualify that. I hope I'm improving lives because people, they improve their own lives. And my audience, great question. My audience is really, as a professional speaker, you're always advised to be very specific, find a real tight and niche. I feel that this is a universal topic. And so last time we spoke, I started off by telling you that I have the privilege and honor, I suppose, of talking about things that people cannot see. And I think that's, kind of intriguing to mention that because, I get a great response talking about things that are intangible, that people cannot see. But there are things that are universals that all people respond to everywhere, regardless of their position or their, their background. There are certain universal truths, if you will, or principles, as you call them, that all human beings respond to. And I love to talk about them. I love to see people light up when I talk about things that, their parents and their grandparents talk about. So really, we're sort of embarrassed to talk about these kinds of things, Andy. We have our social scientists who, they don't want to say the word love. Well, there's a good universal value for you. We all know what that is, but they come up with phrases like affiliation drive, And so you can imagine how ridiculous it would be for me to say to my wife, honey, I just really am inclined to want to take you out this Friday. Because I'm feeling a strong affiliation drive, Yeah. No, it's love. It's love, Andy. You tell her you love her, At work you say, hey, I really love what you're doing, I love you. Why don't we use these words? These are the things that actually work. But I think it's funny that we're kind of embarrassed. So I talk about these things that, you can't see love. You can only see the practices of love. Like you cannot, see those feelings in a person's heart, but you can see when they give flowers or when they give a gift or put out the extra effort. That's what's tangible. So I talk about first, so people respond, I talk about the universal principles that all human beings respond to.
What you call it, affiliation drive, I envision physics scientists in love talking to each other like that.
Dear, your affiliation drive is upwelling more so than usual today. I can really tell. Yeah, it's funny, and the thing is we're embarrassed, and yet we people write hundreds of books on the principles of success. We want to have success in business and in life. And we keep writing more because they're a mystery to us, because we just don't want to admit, hey, let's get back down to what they are. They are trust and cooperation and respect and love and diligence, courage, humility, honesty. The list goes on and on. There are thousands. It's infinite. What gave Abraham Lincoln such personal power? Was he really that much more intelligent than everybody around him? Likely not. But he did have something unusual. He came from another planet so to speak, because he had character values that were just stellar. And so if he were to come back from the dead today, considering the political landscape right now, we have some really colorful characters that are out there putting themselves forward.
Yes,
I think a lot of people would say, hey, I would vote for Lincoln, and why would they do that, Andy? Because they know, look, he wouldn't have a clue what's going on right now. But his advisors would bring him up to speed in no time, and they know he would be a good president. He'd make good decisions because, really when it comes to making important decisions, especially in high places like the presidency, what really matters is not so much the content of your knowledge as the content of your character. Coming from a speech that we're all familiar with, it's really true. And so what we do is we tend to want to look for complicated management formulas. We in business, it's just kind of natural. We're really hungry for some formulas that'll work. We want things to work. Of course we do, but people are not machines, Andy. You can't, plug in the formula and expect to get the results. So what we hear phrases like tools, techniques, and so on. We want to use tools and techniques with people, but they never work. The whole idea behind a tool and a technique that you're using with another human being automatically implies that you're going to do this so that you can get that. In other words, it becomes more about receiving something that you want. So the little coercion behind it, we think, we're going to make this happen. But what really works is mutual understanding, selfless giving, and the values and principles that build strong relationships. And many businesses, not all, but many, most probably, are built on relationships, and relationships are not built on tools and techniques or formulas. They're built on, everlasting, universal truths, trust, cooperation, and so on. So this is what I talk about, and it's so fun, And if a person operates in any capacity as a highly skilled person alone, they're doing so great. Man, we're sure glad we hired this guy. He's the best. The cycle is that if they do not have quality, good character traits, eventually they'll sniff you out like a hound dog, and things will fall apart like a house of cards. We see examples of that in the media all the time. Bill Cosby now suffering the consequences of, a chink in his armor. We all have them. I don't want to be critical, but it's a pretty big chink, obviously. But now his house of cards is falling apart. It's coming down, and it's not because of anything other than a character flaw. And so that's the kind of thing that that's the commodity we really need in business.
Now, the groups you speak to, is it businesses? Is it professionals? Who is wanting to hear your information the most, would you say?
Well, again, as I said, it's really great, and I advise all speakers to heed this counsel from the great minds of the speaking world. Be specific. Mine's not, and I've kind of consigned myself to that realization. So I love to speak. I spoke 2 weeks ago. It was actually, I was asked to speak at a pro-life demonstration. I had no idea that I'd ever be doing something like that, but there it was. And it was a new kind of a crowd. There was about almost 200 people there. It was really enjoyable, and it was I took a different tack. But business professionals, I spoke at a church group recently, and then I have been doing civic organizations and so on. But, as I said, it's a universal deal here. I mean, if you talk about, when you think about the golden rule, for example, it doesn't just apply to people who are interested in, religion per se. It applies to all human beings. And so, that I'm finding that all groups are responding to this. It's really universal. I'm speaking their language. You talk about giving, oatmeal raisin cookies to somebody. They know what you're talking about. Everybody knows what that is.
Right.
It's a universal. You're talking about generosity. And so even in a business context, we talked about this last time, Andy. It's always, it's fun. Like one of my mentors was really questioning. He came to see me speak, and he's thinking, wow, how does this work in the corporate world? Well, it works great because, I believe you have to have a distinct USP, something different, an edge. And I don't want to go into any organization as the same old stuffed shirt and providing the same old message, because, to be an inspiring teacher, which I'm aspiring to become, I don't feel that I am. I feel that I'm learning how to do it. You have no business being a teacher if you're teaching the same old stuff. Teachers, great teachers by definition, their job is to put you on the edge of your seat. They're supposed to get you to think and question and to wonder, why do we do things the way we do these things, and that's what I like to do. So I go in kind of like a meteorite impacting the earth. I go in flames and torch in one hand, a sword in the other, and I put on a one-man show. It really is more of a one-man show than it is a traditional speech, because there are a whole lot of people, hundreds of people trying to make a go of the speaking career out there, Andy. But on one level, you have to have some entertainment value. It's just the way that it is. But you better darn well have a message of substance. And again, the universal values are where you get that substance. If you lack that, people sniff you out like a hound dog, and they'll know that you're just a bunch of cotton candy. So, I'm having a great time. I love to see people's eyes light up. That's the thing I love the most as a former school teacher. When you talk about things that people respond to, that they know applies directly to their life, it's great to see that sparkle in their eye.
You bet. Let's talk about your book, Al, the Make Your Mark on the World in 8 Days. Give us some info on that.
Well, I guess I was a bit obsessed. I must admit, it would be embarrassing to chronicle the many hours that I've put into it, but it's been a passion for me over the years to really try to understand what it is that makes inspiring people tick. We people often say, "Oh, Al, you're a motivational speaker." Well, that may be the only thing I take exception to when people would give me feedback, because, and I keep that to myself. But motivation is in the head. We've heard a lot of motivational speakers that are really good. There are big names out there that motivate you, but it usually doesn't last if it's just in your head. It must be in your heart. The world's most inspiring people, they're driven by things in their heart, and that's where we seem to register these universal values that I have been talking about. And so I have carefully analyzed, deeply analyzed, people like Gandhi, and Mother Teresa and so on. And I wanted to find, what is it that makes them tick? How is it that they're able to do things that are so much beyond what the average person does in terms of really influencing people? And then I realized that I have a different definition of what it means to make your mark on the world. I have purposely selected that phrase because people can connect to it and hook into it. We think it's kind of like, hey, I run Chrysler, Motors. I have made my mark, this kind of thing. I don't want to be, derogatory towards, who. I'm just saying that's kind of our image. We beat our chest and say, I'm making my mark, and everybody says, yeah, we want to make our mark just like you. We're going to be successful. Well, you're going to get success if you work hard. But the real definition is when you're concerned about the success and happiness of other people. And that's one of the key ingredients that sets the world's most inspiring people aside from other people. So I came up with 8 areas that I noticed. My book is based on an octopus model I won't get into. And it has 8 tentacles, I call them, rather than chapters. But there are 8 general areas that they draw on to make their mark on the world. And again, it applies for not just individuals, Andy, but I want to say what I've learned applies to people in organizations collectively. For example, one great example of, I would say, one of the world's most inspiring organizations is Nordstrom. People wonder what makes Nordstrom so great. Well, it's a beautiful story. It's real simple. They teach their people to embrace the character value of outstanding customer service. And that's kind of ethereal. That's an abstract concept, but they immerse them in that. It gets in their hearts, and then they allow them to be self-governing because they hold them accountable to only one rule. That rule is use good judgment in all situations. And so truly, you can see by their results. They're outperforming retailers all the time. That if you empower your people with good character traits, they will create a high performance work culture for you. And that's what individually the world's most inspiring people do that I've been able to identify. But collectively, I'm showing organizations how you can be hands-off with your employees. Hey, we want to have employees we don't have to look at all the time, right? Sure, go monitor. It's kind of like we hear about MBO, management by objectives. It's similar in concept. You tell them, this needs to be done, X, Y, and Z. But you don't, it's really hard, Andy, to not give them a whole checklist of specifics. Sometimes we need to do that, but sometimes if you don't, hey, you hired those people for their talents that they've been working on for their whole life. Let them run with it. You come back and you find out, my gosh, they'd exceeded my expectations because they were governing themselves with a principle.
Very interesting, Al. That's I'd like to read that one of these days.
I hope you do. I hope you find something that you enjoy about it. There's at least something I think that you could get out of it.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot. Well, Al, thank you so much for pulling back the curtain, showing us what goes on with your speaking career, what you're teaching people, showing us your inner thoughts and such. It's fascinating information. And how can people get a hold of you should they want to know more or have you speak?
Well, they can get all of that information on my website, which is makeyourmarkontheworld.org. Hey, folks, don't go to .com. If I don't say that, it's funny how many people automatically go to .com. It's makeyourmarkontheworld.org. And feel free to go through the course. It's free. I will be changing that on December 1st. We've decided to go a different route now and to flip the switch and make it a membership site. So until then, it's a free course. It's pretty beefy, quite robust. And feel free to give me any kind of feedback that you'd like. I'd love to hear back from you.
Okay, Al. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy, and hope to speak with you soon.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.